Hello everyone, this is Ed Densel, host of Unfound. I wonder if you will consider becoming a supporter of this YouTube channel. By pressing the join button below, you can receive, for just 10 cents a day, the video version of the podcast a day early, the Unfound Now episodes a week early, daily video updates from yours truly, and cool emojis to use during the Monday night live show. Please consider it as you watch the following spectacular video. Thanks. James Lubin Valdez, Jamie to those who knew him best, was a 47-year-old from Booneville, Arkansas. He was a father who had recently gotten married. On June 9th, 2021, Jamie got into an argument with his wife. This continued when he showed up at her work. Jamie then went home, threw some clothes into his car, and took off. Jamie's car was later found near where he grew up. He was never seen again. I'm Ed Densel, and this is Unfound. All of us, myself included, are really just one moment away from a crisis. That doesn't necessarily mean death and destruction. It could be a car not starting, losing a job, you finding out that expensive dental work is ahead. I certainly know all about that. For disappearances, this is certainly true. How many have we covered where the person was just living his or her life, no problem, then poof, the person was gone. Some examples: Cleshindra Hall, Keith Fetter, Jesse Ross, Steve Davis, and most recently, Paris Hobson. All different demographics, location, age, gender, and race. But they and many others disappeared seemingly within the time it takes to snap your fingers, despite none of them giving even one sign that they were about to go missing. Well, with Jamie Valdez, everything seemed right in his life. Married, good job, he had successfully fought his addiction, then he was gone. Did he somehow cross a fine line? And now a summary of the case. This is brought to you by my friend Megan Linez's website, charleyproject.org. Jamie Valdez was a life-of-the-party type of guy, liked by everyone with an outgoing personality. And Jamie was a butcher. Who doesn't like a local butcher except for the vegetarians, right? He had a daughter who was close to Jamie despite the struggles he had. Speaking of those struggles, there were quite a few. Jamie fought diabetes most of his life, mainly from being overweight. In addition, Jamie fought a meth addiction that he allegedly had under control at the time of his disappearance. So on June 9th, 2021, Jamie and his new wife got into an argument. She was picking up an extra shift at work, but Jamie wanted to spend the day with her. Later that day, Jamie went to his wife's workplace where their disagreement continued. Jamie then went home and, according to witnesses, threw a bunch of clothes in his car and left. Jamie did not say where he was going. He was never seen again. Several days later, a person connected to Jamie's wife happened upon his car very close to where Jamie grew up. Some of the electronics had been ripped out, and searchers found a few paper items with Jamie's name on them not far away. A larger search of the area revealed no more clues. How can something so good go bad so quickly? This is a question that has been asked by families and police involved in disappearances long before Unfound ever existed. But I'd like to think, with the work we do on this podcast, that myself and all of you are starting to get closer to the answers. Contemplate that as you try to answer these 3 questions during the interview. Number 1, does Jamie showing up at his wife's work show that he might not have had a firm grip on reality at that point? Number 2, if Jamie was having a diabetic attack, or maybe he had gone back to his meth addiction, how was he mentally aware enough to end up where he grew up? And number 3, should we consider foul play for Jamie's disappearance, considering his wife's brother's criminal history and a person who the wife knew just happened to locate Jamie's car? Jamie's family is not set on any particular theory regarding his disappearance, although they have heard rumors that point to foul play. The guest for this episode is Jamie's sister, Shawn Claiborne. Unfound News. Please send out your deepest sympathies to my assistant Cherie, who lost her mother due to a tragic accident last Friday. Next, another show with Dr. Telesco occurred yesterday. I hope you watched it. If not, please go to the Fischler College of Education and School of Criminal Justice channel on YouTube to see what the good doctor and I discussed. Finally, a listener alerted me to the fact that Unfound made a best of list this year, Best Missing Persons Mystery Podcast at lifewire.com. The writer stated, "Be ready for some heavy content." You're darn right.
Where you can find Unfound on these following podcast platforms: Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, and many others, especially outside the United States. The new podcast, Unfound Live, which comes out on Tuesdays, can also be found on these platforms. Social media sites: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and the newest one, TikTok. Listener support sites: patreon.com/unfound podcast, paypal.me/unfound podcast. The website, theunfoundpodcast.com. The email address, unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. And please mention Unfound at all true crime websites and forums. Thank you.
I'm so happy to have on this episode of Unfound the sister of Jamie Valdez, Shawn Claiborne. Shawn, welcome to Unfound.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. I should ask, maybe we just need to start this off. Your first name is Shawn. Of course,
Yes.
we normally associate that with a guy's name. I got to ask before we get started. How did you get the name Shawn?
Well, my mother, when she was pregnant, actually knew a boy, Shawn, and she just knew I was a boy. So when I was born and was a girl, she decided to keep the name. So every time I go to the doctor's office and they call me and I stand up, they're very confused.
Okay. She couldn't even do a little bit of a compromise, like a Shauna, not even a
I know,
Shauna.
right? But yeah, I actually like the name Shawn after, because it is unusual.
Yeah, and I'm thinking there was an actress, Sean Young, but she spelled her name differently. She was in that movie No Way Out and some other movies with Kevin Costner, but her name was
Okay.
Sean, so I guess it's not.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
and normally I would think Sean is a boy's name.
yeah, well, that's her name. So okay, so you're not alone out there, Shawn. You're not alone.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, let's talk about your family. Of course, you are Jamie's sister. How many children? Just give an idea of the Valdez slash Claiborne home growing up.
Okay, so there was 5 of us kids. I'm the oldest, And then there's my sister Kim, who is 2 years younger than me. My sister Nikki, who's 3 years younger than me. Jamie is 5 years younger than me. And Daniel is 7 years younger than me.
Wow.
It was a house full.
You got quite a brood there. Wow.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right. I have to ask, all same fathers and mothers, or some half sisters, half
No,
brothers?
I have a different dad than the others.
Oh.
So the others are all actually Valdez. I was Todd. But growing up, that didn't matter, not even a bit, because I mean, we were our mom. Well, she was married up until I was 9, and then she divorced, and so it was for a long period of time. It was just us with mom. And then she did end up, getting married a couple of times while we were still in the house. But yeah, we're all pretty close.
Okay, you're all pretty close. Despite of course, some age differences and there being so many of you.
Yeah, I think, mom always wanted boys until she had the boys. And then she would say, I should have stopped with the girls. But she... she just because she always wanted boys, she kept trying until she had boys, her 2 boys that she wanted. But
right.
Yeah.
Okay. And what was it like being, I guess you were one of the older siblings, so what was that like?
There was a lot of responsibility because she had to work at least one job, if not 2 or 3 jobs, to make ends meet. And so after school, she would set us up like a chart for doing chores, and we would have specific days we had to do specific chores, and we'd get in trouble. We didn't do those chores. I was responsible for cooking dinner most of the time. Taking care of the kids and making sure they stayed safe and alive.
Yeah. And,
that started from a pretty early age. So, as the oldest sibling, the younger ones don't like that person in charge, but, I had to do what mom told me to do.
Sure.
And then on the other hand, it lended itself to us being alone a lot. And so we bonded quite well. When we weren't fighting.
Okay.
There was a good family connection there.
Okay, very good. And when you had to cook dinner, what was your specialty?
Probably at that time it was spaghetti, after I realized you were supposed to boil the water before you put the noodles in. Yeah. And then, and fried chicken. Everybody loved my fried chicken.
Oh yeah, there you go. I could sign up for either of those. Okay, very good. All right, and I guess what you're saying is you had to grow up fairly quickly.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Let's move on now to talking about Jamie in particular. And I told you we were going to talk about this before we started this interview. Can you explain his middle name, Lubin? Lubin. I don't think I've ever seen that before. What can you say?
Yes. His dad's middle name was actually Lubin. And I believe it was a family name that was passed down. His dad was actually born, his dad's family was actually born in Mexico. And so it was just a family name that was passed down. And I believe there's several in that family that have either Lubin as a first name or a middle name. But yeah, I have never heard of it since then. So it is unusual.
Okay. I would not normally think of Lubin as being like a Mexican or Hispanic or Spanish name, but I guess it is.
I think that their family is originally have maybe some Spaniard genetic background.
Okay.
I'm not really sure on that, but my sister Nikki, she's a genealogist expert. She would know all of that.
Yeah, every family has one, right?
Yes, and she's great at it.
Okay. All right. So that's his middle name, Jamie Lubin Valdez. Let's talk about him. Of course, you were his older sister. You were cooking for him and all of that. What can you say about his personality, his interests? What can you say about your brother? Growing up, maybe the teen years and onward.
Okay. He's always been like, I would call it gregarious, walks in the room, lights it up. Everybody pretty much loved him. And I'm going to say pretty much just because.
Yeah, nobody's
I know
perfect.
there's always a couple who don't.
Sure.
But people would gravitate towards him because he was so happy and loved to joke. Growing up, he was a little bit of a prankster, not real bad, but, he enjoyed having fun. He and Daniel, the littlest brother, they hung out a lot. They had lots of fun, back then you could roam around town by walking, and they did a lot of that, even as youngsters. And my sisters and we would go out and we'd play football with them. I wouldn't last probably as long as the others because I'd break a nail. But,
okay. God forbid.
But, we would do stuff like that or play cards. And he was very loving. And I would say he was probably a peacemaker. Like if any of the rest of us were squabbling, he would just very nonchalantly say, oh, that doesn't matter. And, or get in between us if we're going at it a little too hard. And just, he wanted peace in his life.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
That's Jamie in a nutshell. It's just very loving and kind. He would give you the shirt off of his back. And, I have had so many people reach out to me in the last year and a half, just talking about how, if Jamie would be down on his luck, they would let him come into their house and he would help out by cooking, cleaning, taking care of the kids, just fiddling, helping with their cars when they broke down, kind of a jack of all trades kind of guy.
Yeah.
And so they reached out to me and they told me, we trusted Jamie with our lives. We didn't have any problems with letting him stay here. He was very trustworthy. He never stole from us, never did, never messed everything up. He was just helpful. And I thought that was very heartwarming to hear. I mean, and to have all these people come and tell me about him, it was pretty awesome.
Yeah. How about schooling? Did well in school? Did he play sports? What kind of activities? What did he do in that realm of his life?
Well, he had dyslexia, so school wasn't really his best friend.
Okay.
And he enjoyed the social aspect of it, but when it came to like homework and stuff like that, I think he would keep a lot of his homework to do until he got home, and he would ask for help. And so me and both the brothers, we would sit down at the table and we'd go over spelling words, or especially anything with English, like, writing and stuff like that. They would ask me for help.
Sure.
I wasn't particularly strong, like in math. And so, I mean, I could help them with adding and subtracting. If you get into the long division, I'm like, I don't want to do that. So school, he did okay. He dropped out kind of early.
He dropped out. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm not sure. I think he got his GED later, but I'm not 100% positive on that.
All right.
Yeah, he liked school okay,
Okay. What about work? If he did drop out, did he get a job? What was he doing in his late teens into his 20s for work?
He was a hard worker, and he always had at least one job, usually two. Pretty much the whole time I've known him, even if he did have just one technical job, he would do work on the side doing lawn work. But he would do stuff like work as a cook in a convenience store where he would, make whatever food they have, or in a cafe, he would work as a cook, or as a butcher. That was probably his love. He could tell you about every cut of meat there
Wow.
ever was in the history of meat, and tell you which cuts were the best.
Yeah, I love it.
And
I love
even,
meat. I love it.
oh, yeah, yeah. I was like, what kind of steak should I buy? And he's the one who told me about how good ribeyes were. I
Yeah.
was always buying the sirloin because they were cheap. And he's like,
Yeah.
oh, no, get the ribeye.
Yes.
You'll thank me later. And yeah, thank you,
Yeah.
Jamie. They're awesome.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. And he loved working. And his coworkers, they've come to me and they've been all like, if I knew Jamie was working a shift with me, I was excited to work that shift because I knew it was going to go by fast. And because Jamie joked the whole time during shift, and he would just make the day pass by faster. And Jamie always pulled his share of the weight of the work plus more. You know, if you saw somebody else in need or whatever, he'd help them too. So, I mean, that's who Jamie was.
Okay. And maybe getting up closer to the time of his disappearance, what kind of work was he doing?
He was actually a butcher at CV's in Booneville, Arkansas at the time of his disappearance.
Okay. All right. Thank you. What about children? We'll get into the one particular relationship that he was having. Of course, he was married when he went missing, but any children?
He does have one daughter who is now, she turned 16 back in September.
Wow. Okay. So he had kind of a, guess what we might call, we have to remember this is a very recent disappearance. So he had kind of an older daughter.
Yes.
Middle
yes.
teen years. Okay.
Yeah.
So just
and it's been
one
really
daughter.
rough on her.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we had hard worker, great personality, funny guy. He's the father of one daughter. And how often did the daughter live with him? Did she live with her mother? Did they see each other often? What was the setup there?
Her mother is in prison right now at this time. But when she was first born, she lived with both of them. They were not married, but she lived with both of them. Her mother got into drugs, and so ended up pretty much leaving, and Jamie took care of her, mostly by himself for many years. Oh. And then Jamie and his daughter moved in with her grandmother, which is mother's mother, because she had cancer. And he helped take care of her while she was sick until she passed. And then at that point, the daughter went and lived with the grandmother's sister. And so she's living there right now, and she's always gone to that same school and loves that school. So,
okay. So was he having some sort of relationship?
And I have to say,
please.
I'm sorry.
Please go ahead. Please continue.
Well, I would just say that the reason that, well, first the grandmother had guardianship of her was because that was around the time Jamie started falling into the addiction.
Okay.
And so the grandmother did get guardianship, and then the great aunt, she took over the guardianship whenever the grandmother passed away.
Okay.
I love how that sun is coming through.
That was for everybody seeing that. That was not planned. That's just the sun goes down. The sun goes down in the west every day. Yeah, sun goes down in the west every day. That was not planned. Yeah, it looks like I'm coming down from heaven or something, which is certainly not the case. Okay, so he did have a relationship with his daughter, even though he did not have custody of his daughter.
Yes, I mean, even though he didn't have custody, they were in contact, and he would go by and visit her, or take her to eat, or text her, call her on the phone. At one point, Jamie had come to stay at my house for a couple of weeks, and he was thinking about moving to Texas. So he was down looking for a job. And I tell you, between the two of them, I could not use my phone. They were constantly on the phone with each other. It was so cute.
Okay.
But the phone would ring, and I'd be like, it's your daughter. I don't even have to look.
So you would say that he had a good relationship with his daughter?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Definitely.
Okay.
And she was his world. Like the sun rose and set with his daughter. And, you know, he used to call me and tell me all of her achievements in school. And, you know, she made 100 on another spelling test, or,
Wow.
hey, she just got a perfect attendance award, or, hey, she's on the honor roll. That's awesome. He was so proud of her. Definitely proud.
I can tell.
He just loved her to death.
Okay. Let's move on to some issues that I think everybody's going to you probably have to consider when thinking about his disappearance. Of course, once we present all the facts, the circumstances, and other things that we know about his disappearance. Let's talk about his physical health. Of course, he was not a young guy. He was not 20. But, you know, I've read he did have some physical issues. Might have had diabetes. I realized that maybe you didn't know his intimate details of his physical health, but what you saw, what he talked about, what can you say about his physical health at the time of his disappearance?
I do know a few years before his disappearance that he had a diabetic episode. I don't think he realized how bad his diabetes was at that time. He was a lot more overweight, and he was driving down the road, and he said he got real shaky and everything started going black. And so he pulled over his truck and called the ambulance to come get him. And I believe they said his sugar level was at 400, in the 400s when they took him in. So they told him, you know, you're going to have to get on insulin, and you know, if you lose weight, you can get off of the insulin. So he did choose to lose weight, and he was able to move over to the whatever the pills are, diabetic pills. Okay. And so he was just taking the oral medication. But I did notice, you know, in some of his pictures, he was gaining the weight back. So I don't know. His wife did say that she could tell when his sugars would get off, because he would get irritable and just kind of cranky and not very nice. And so she was trying to urge him to go get his sugar levels checked professionally, but well, he never did get a chance to do that.
That didn't happen. Okay. Did he, what kind of conversations? Was this something that he just didn't realize? Or, of course, we know people that just are maybe ignoring things, or he wasn't worried about it. How would you put it?
Well, he's a guy, so
okay.
That.
All right.
But I don't, you know, I don't think he was pricking his finger every so often to see how his levels were. Mm-hmm. You know, he was just popping those diabetic pills. And, you know, when he disappeared, that was one of the things he left behind. And so I did check the pharmacy to see if by chance he had refilled it somewhere. And they're able to check their database, and they told me that no, it had not been refilled. Okay. Said, okay. Well, it was, you know, something that was worth a shot.
Right. And the thing about diabetes is that it can bring in so many issues. You know, circulation issues, heart issues, overweight issues, all sorts of things. It's just one disease, but it can affect your entire body. So, you know, that, you know, maybe it's just enough. So this is a concern. Is this something that genetic, or once again, you tend to think it was because he was overweight, or what do you think?
Our mom struggled with it a little bit, but she was overweight as well. And I don't think she had gotten to the point where she was having to take insulin, but she was having to take the oral medication as well. Okay. So it probably does run in the family.
Let's move on to this. Just speaking about your mother, something else that happened, I guess not too long before he went missing, is that your mother did pass away. Yes. When did this happen, and how did Jamie handle it?
That was it was November 30th, 2016. And I don't think any of us kids took it well. It was just super hard on all of us. It was very unexpected. She passed with congestive heart failure and pretty much passed in her sleep, which that was a blessing. But, you know, just even the day after her funeral, we knew that he had fallen back into his addiction after being sober for a while. And we had even told him, when we were at the funeral home, and it was just us kids there at, doing like a real short viewing before the funeral.
Yeah.
And we talked frankly to him, and we said, I believe it was all three of us girls. We told him, Jamie, don't let this be an excuse for you to fall back into drugs.
Right.
And he's like, oh, I won't. But I tell you, whenever I was headed back to Texas, I got a phone call, and it was from my little brother. And he's like, Jamie's here, and he's saying somebody stole Mom's car. And I'm like, what? Because we had given Jamie Mom's car. He didn't have a car at the time. And when we got to the bottom of it, we found out that he had a meth-induced hallucination and thought there was a bomb in the car. He bailed. The car was in the middle of the road. The doors were open. The engine was running. And he walked to Mom's house where Daniel was staying at the time because he was cleaning it out. And so the car got towed. But, it's like, I actually, through Messenger, I sent Jamie a few messages. And I was like, Jamie, what are you doing? Stop it. Don't do anymore. And then he's, said, I told you I didn't even want the car. And that was kind of the tone he would get whenever he was using.
Yeah.
He would kind of be not his usual self. You could just tell. And so, but it wasn't, he actually ended up being homeless for 6 months to a year's time after that. Wow. And had life pretty rough. And, we were kind of trying to step back and do tough love. And, as a sibling who really loves her brother, that's not easy because, you want that for your brother. But we knew that if we just swooped in and tried to fix everything, it wasn't going to fix the root of the problem. And so we're like, well, if he's got to hit rock bottom, hopefully it's not too hard to crash. And he did eventually seek out going to rehab, which was a good thing. And he would do better for a little while, and he slipped back, and he kind of went back and forth for a while after that. And then at one point, and all during this, we're still in communication constantly. Like he's liking our Facebook post, or he's messaging us through Facebook, or he's texting us, or he's calling us, or he's video chatting. So there was always something, even when he was doing badly. And, he would use somebody else's phone if his phone wasn't working, or if he lost his phone. He would say, he would message me first and say, hey, Sean, this is Jamie. I'm fixing to call you. And so he would call, and he'd be like, Sean, I'm starving, and I haven't had anything to eat in 3 days. Can you buy me a pizza and I'll just go pick it up? And to that kind of stuff, I will always say yes to, because I don't want my brother starved to death. And plus with his diabetes, I'm just like, yeah, let me call it in for you. At one point, he asked for me to rent him a hotel room. The first time I said no, because I just got to thinking about, well, if I do, and, he gets in trouble and he has a meth hallucination and tears the room up, then I'm the one, who's in charge.
Yes.
And so at that time I said, I'm sorry, I don't have the money. And so like in the middle of summer, he asked me again. And he said, I haven't had a shower in days. I stink to high heaven. And if you know my brother, he's like Mr. Hygienic. He's got to have a shower every day, cleaning out his Q-tips like 3 times a day, and brushing his teeth all the time, and just very clean. And for him not to take a shower, that's a big deal for him. So I did rent him a hotel room that time because he told me, he's like, I need to wash my clothes. I'm like, well, how are you going to wash them? And he said, I'm just going to wash them in the tub with their soap. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, hey, mom's backwoods training taught us something.
So how did all this get started? How did he get into his addiction, and when did this start? Being that you, of course, were older than him, you kind of raised him, you were cooking for him. When did this all start?
I was already out of the house. I think he was 12 whenever I went away to college. And so I wasn't there when it actually started. And to be honest, I didn't even know when it did start because Mom never shared that with me. I didn't find out until just recently that it was in his later early 20s that he started using.
Wow.
And actually, that's when our mother, she got into it as well. She got into it first. And then the boys followed suit. And so, and they were young. So Mom actually went to prison a couple of times for it. And the last time she was in prison, I wrote her a letter and I'm like, Mom, you're 50 years old. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Stop it.
Right.
And she wrote me back and it wasn't very nice, but and Jamie was actually in prison. He went to prison for, I believe it was for drugs during one of the times when Mom was in prison, because I've got letters from Mom saying, hey, your brother is saying you haven't written him. Would you please write him? So I actually have some of those letters still from Jamie. And he'd be like, yeah, I got a letter from Nikki, but I haven't gotten one from you.
All right. So what you're saying is late teens, of course, then he had been on and off an addict for a long time.
Yeah, he had. I think the thing that pulled him out of it probably for the longest period of time was when his daughter was born. And but then when he lost custody of her, I think he lost hope. And then when Mom died, he just slipped right back into it. But yeah, and he was in rehab when he met his wife Anna through Facebook, and he was talking to her through Messenger, and they started talking, and he went to Texas where she was living to be with her, and she insisted that he stay sober for a year and then she would marry him.
Okay. So that's how they met, being that that's the next topic in our outline. So he meets this woman. Her name is Anna. What year was that? Approximately.
That was 2020.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So very, very recently. So well after your mother died.
Yes.
They met on Facebook. He goes to meet her. They start this relationship. And we're just going to talk about her in general terms right now. We'll talk about what, the disappearance and what she had to say and everything later. But did you meet her? Your opinion of her?
I did not actually meet her until after he was already gone.
Okay.
So we weren't even friends on Facebook. The only, Jamie had messaged me to tell me, hey, I moved to Texas. I've got this new girlfriend. She's really sweet. I think you'll like her. And she's beautiful. And I'm like, oh, great.
Okay.
Yeah. And he was excited and telling me about a new job he had working at a butcher, as a butcher. And he just loved it.
All right. So you didn't get to meet her until after he went missing. Did anybody else in your family get to meet her, like, once again, in person, face to face, before he went missing?
My brother Daniel met her. He had gone to Jamie's house to help work on a vehicle. And so he met her then, and he said, Jamie introduced them. Anna said hi. And then he said she pretty much ran off and he didn't see her after that. So yeah, he only saw her just a minute or so, and then she was doing something else. And then my sister Nikki, Jamie actually brought Anna to Nikki's house, and Nikki said she stood out on the porch and was just talking to them and had met her there. And she said when they came up, Anna had on her sunglasses, and she never did take off the sunglasses, and didn't have a whole lot to say. Nikki's first impression was not very good because she just didn't get a good vibe from her, is what she says. Okay. And you know, Nikki has really good intuition, so you know, I trusted her. But I'm the person who I believe the best in everybody until proven wrong. And so even though Nikki had said I don't have a good vibe from her, I'm like, well, until I meet her, you know, I'm not gonna pass any judgments. So yeah.
All right, but maybe surprisingly quick, maybe not surprising, you can say they actually got married, let's just say approximately a month before he went missing. Your family surprised about them getting married? Was this a spur of the moment thing? What can you say about that?
I was surprised at just because he had messaged me the morning of, and I didn't have any actual warning of the actual date. But other than that, I knew that they were getting married. So that part wasn't so much a surprise.
Okay. All right. And given maybe that one of your sisters, Nikki, did not have a great impression of her, were you a little worried about that? Or how did you feel?
Not so much. I figured Jamie could probably handle himself. And, you know, I mean, he's a big boy. If it, you know, wasn't going to work, he could just leave, is, you know, my thoughts on that.
Yeah. And we have to remember, he's not like he's 20.
Right.
He's a grown man. He already has a daughter.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, he can, hopefully he can judge people's character, you know, himself after all those years. Right.
Yeah.
All right. So they're together. They get married in May, and we'll come back to that later. Maybe I just need also to ask you about this. Did quite a bit of moving around. You've already stated that, you know, you'd been in jail a couple times, and, you know, sometimes, of course, people who get out of jail, their travel is restricted, maybe due to a parole officer or something like that. But from Arkansas to Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, you know, why was this?
Well, he went from Arkansas to Texas to meet Anna and then stayed. And then while they were in Texas, they decided to move to Oklahoma. Now, this is something that Anna told me much later, even, you know, after Jamie disappeared, is that the reason that they moved is because Jamie had tried to choke her. And so she said she had marks on her neck, and a detective saw it, and he started questioning her about it, or he called her, is what she said, and was asking her questions. And so they picked up and moved to Oklahoma so that they couldn't be questioned. I did talk with their landlord at the time, and she told me that, because I asked her if she knew the reason why they moved, and she had text from Anna, and she told me that the text just stated that her mother was not doing well, and so they were moving due to that. But then they moved to Oklahoma, so the landlord felt like it might have been that they were just having trouble paying the rent, because I think Jamie had lost his job at that time, and the landlord knew he had lost his job, and so when they moved to Oklahoma, they had job opportunities there that they were pursuing. So, and plus Anna has she calls him her son, or her stepson. It's a son from a previous relationship, and they moved there and brought him into the home as well. him and his little baby. And so they were all four living together at that time. So,
did Anna have a job?
It was said that they moved there from Jamie. They moved there to help out the son because he was not doing well and needed a little bit of financial assistance. So, I'm hearing all kinds of different things.
Okay. Did Anna have a job?
She usually works, or has worked. And for a while, she worked in healthcare as a CNA. During the time Jamie disappeared, she was working at a convenience store. I know that she worked at the Dollar Tree after Jamie disappeared. I think after Jamie disappeared, her mother passed away October 31st of 2021. And I think at that point, she just was having so much, all of that's pretty heavy. You've got a husband who has disappeared, and people are basically pointing fingers at you all over town. And then your mother passes away, and she's your best friend. So she was, understandably not doing well mentally. And she ended up quitting her job and quitting school because she was going to school to be a physical therapist. And so she quit that and pretty much just let everything go.
Okay, after he went missing.
Yeah.
Okay. And what was the living situation in Arkansas at the time of his disappearance? Who was all under the same roof?
That would be Belinda, her mother, Larry, the brother, and his two children, Anna and Jamie, and their dog.
All right. So a lot of people under the same roof.
Yes.
All right. How, in your opinion, if you spoke to Jamie, that's a lot of people under one roof, a lot of kids, a lot of dynamics going on. Overall, how was he doing dealing with all of that?
He actually never talked about the living situation ever. When we would talk, it would be about silly stuff like Bigfoot or, just crazy fun stuff. He never mentioned anything about, how married life was going or anybody else in the house. He just never brought it up.
Would you say that he avoided it? Did you try to ask about it, or was it just something that never came up?
It just never came up.
Okay, so you never asked him about it, and then he turned it around and wanted to talk about something else.
No, I would ask him stuff about like his job or, stuff like that, and just things about him in general. Okay. I think I did ask him once how married life was, and he said it was good. So, okay. I don't want to be the meddlesome big sister.
No, it's not your job. He's not your child.
Yeah.
No, he's a grown man, but just in talking to him, just asking how he was doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just in general, how, making sure he's doing okay, but without asking him, are you doing okay?
Right. All right. So it sounds to me, Jamie has a lot of things going on. He's had an addiction that off and on for several years. We have to remember he was in his 40s, correct?
Right.
When he went missing?
He was 47 when he disappeared.
Right. So many, many years. He's newly married to Anna, and now he is living with essentially her family. A lot of people under the same roof. We know that he has these physical issues, of course, have nothing to do with any of the relationships that he's having, but these are brought on by himself or genetics or something. So he has a lot of things going on. When he disappeared, we have to remember this was June of just last year. This was just not even a year and a half ago. All right, a lot of things going on. And we'll get to maybe some of these people more specifically later. But, all right, so moving up to June 9th, 2021, just want to make clear on this. What is the official story? We realize that people are maybe going to speculate maybe that some of these things aren't true, and they can do that. But we're only going to talk about the official story. What do you know about the official story for June 9th of 2021? Just because you're saying it Doesn't necessarily mean that you believe it. You just tell us what the official story is.
Okay. On June the 10th, Anna messaged me on Facebook, and she said, or she asked me, have you heard from your brother? And I said, not lately, not within the past week or so. Why? And she said, well, he's on another one of his vacations. And I'm like, what do you mean a vacation? And she said, well, sometimes he just decides, he gets bored with life and he just decides to go on a vacation. And I'm like, okay, so what? Did anything happen before? And she said that they had an argument.
The day before? The day before?
Yes, the day before on June the 9th. And that she had been called into work. And so he got angry at her when she told them that she would come in because they were both scheduled to be off that day. And so he was looking forward to spending the day with her and got angry. Okay. And it ended up, the fight escalated, and it ended up that he was calling her all kinds of names and telling her, you know what you did, you're just running around and this and that. And so she was like, look, I've got to go into work. And she said she went in. Okay. The mother and the brother were there during the time that fight happened. And when she went into work, it was about 2:30 in the afternoon. She said that Jamie showed up a little bit later, and he asked her, would it be okay if he just went back home? And she said, Jamie, I'm at work. I don't have time for this. Just do whatever you want. And
what you're gonna have to explain that. Go back home. What does that mean? Go back to where?
Go back to the house where they were living, at her mother's house.
Okay.
So I guess when he went back, he ended up just throwing more clothes in the car from what she said her mother stated. Mm-hmm. And that he took $600 supposedly from her mother and left. Okay. And so she did tell me that she had spent that day in Ozark driving around looking to see if she could find him, and she didn't see any sign of him. Mm-hmm. And then when she got back home is when she messaged me. And so at that point, I wasn't too concerned. I mean, I was, there was a little bit of, Sure. And so I did, and I messaged him. A couple of days had gone by. I messaged him and I said, hey, Jamie, are you okay? Just wanting to know, expecting a response. And I didn't get a response right away. And I had told her I'm going to make just some Facebook posts and, start asking if any of his friends have seen him. So I did that because there was a time several years ago where I didn't hear from Jamie for a little while. And I made a Facebook post and I tagged him in it. And within minutes, one of his friends messaged me and he said, I didn't want to put this on Facebook for everybody to see, but I wanted you to know that Jamie's fine. He's checked himself into rehab. And that's why he's unavailable. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. Okay, thank you. Thank you for letting me know. And I even reached out to that particular guy and asked him, hey, have you seen Jamie?
Yeah, good idea.
And then I started reaching out to all of his Facebook friends individually, asking them. And a lot of them were wanting to know what was going on and, hey, is there anything we can do to help? And I would just tell them, if you see or hear from him, just let me know. And to this day, nobody's
seen him.
Yeah. We have had a couple of people who thought they might have seen him. But two of those people were people that hadn't seen him in a long time, but they thought that the person they saw resembled him. Yeah. And then his daughter's guardian thought she saw him from behind walking. But, you know, that wasn't confirmed. So we can't really, you know, say that was or wasn't.
Let me ask you some questions. So when she said so she calls you on the 10th, you actually talked to her on the phone. This isn't like messenger typing back and forth. You're actually hearing her voice.
No. This is totally on Messenger.
Oh, on Messenger. So you're not hearing Anna's voice. All right. So this is all on Messenger.
She specifically told me she did not like talking on the phone. She only wanted to talk through Messenger.
All right. So you still have those messages saved somewhere. This was only last year. You certainly have those messages saved, correct?
I do. And I have actually turned them into law enforcement as well.
All right. And you haven't sent them to me though, correct?
No, I haven't, but I would like to. If you
yeah, please do. I'd like to. I'm not saying we're going to make them public, but I would certainly like to see them. So when she said he went on quote unquote one of his vacations, for everybody watching, I'm putting the quote unquote little fingers up. What did that mean? Have you ever been able to decipher? Has she ever explained like further what that meant? Was that news to you? What did you think of when she said that?
It was definitely news to me. I never knew of him to just go on quote unquote vacations. Mm-hmm. But what she said is that Jamie would start getting listless and bored and just tell her, hey, you know, this is like from when I guess when they lived in Oklahoma. Hey, I'm going to Arkansas for a few days. And he would say, you know, go see my daughter, go see my friends, just whatever. But she was telling me she was convinced that he was out messing around on her. And, you know, she even said that he was out messing around with his daughter's mother. Well, his daughter's mother was in prison. So that wasn't happening. And, you know, I don't know what Jamie was doing during those times because I wasn't aware of it. So,
well, let me ask you this, being that she's bringing up these times before, however many times, or I once again, I don't know if I'm supposed to believe this or not, but she's saying it. So when she said he would go to see friends or his daughter, would she actually check into these things to see if they were true?
I'd never heard that she had.
Okay. All right. So she says that she calls you the next day. Hey, Jamie's on one of his quote unquote vacations. Again, that was, excuse me. Vacation. Yeah. Message you saying this, and you had never heard of this before. Had your siblings ever heard of this before?
No, they hadn't.
Okay.
Not at all.
All right. So she's saying this. Not sure what to make of that. She's the one saying it. I guess you have to believe it. And then you start reaching out to everybody who knew Jamie, who might run into him, even somebody who had helped you before regarding this, and nobody had seen him. And so I guess they had two separate cars. She had a car, he had a car?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so, and the story is that after he goes to see her at her job, he goes home, throws some clothes in the car, takes some money from her mother. They just happen to have $600 lying around. We should all be so fortunate. And he takes off. That's the story. Okay. Yes. And there were other people, like you said, her brother, her mother, there when they had the original fight or argument, right. I should say, argument.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So he takes off. You're looking for him through June 10th into June 11th. When was a police report finally filed? Did you file it? Did she file it? You know, what was the point at which you say, you know what, I'm going to have to get law enforcement involved to try to track him and the car
down? So the police report was not actually filed until after the car was found.
Okay. All right. And what date?
And the reason
we'll get into that, but
didn't,
just to give us an idea of the date, and we'll go back to this. But what date was the car found? How long later?
June 19th.
Wow, it took 10 days, that long.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll get into how it was
Yeah.
found. But once it was
Yeah. And
done,
I
please.
didn't file a police report because she was telling me that she felt like he was out partying. And, I was like, well, that probably isn't good. And, and I did reach out to him, but with no answer. So,
Right, so you're trying to reach him. Of course, he does not respond. She
right.
believes that, he's cheating on her, even though they've been married for a month. They're living together. Um, with all those people under the roof, maybe hard to find the time, but that's what she's saying. I'm not there. So she's saying these things that it very well may be, but maybe 9 or 10 days is a little bit of a stretch. If he was cheating on her, something probably.
Yeah.
The car is found. We'll get into how it was found and everything. But the police, you finally filed a report.
Yes.
All right. And who did
Well,
they
she
talk?
did. Yes.
And who did they talk to? They talked to you. Did they talk to Anna? Did they talk to her brother? Did they talk to their mother? What kind of work did the police do once all the paperwork is filled out?
So when she filled out the police report, they talked to her, of course, initially. And then a few weeks later, they went by her house to give her more paperwork to fill out. I did hear that the brother was called in for questioning. He went in and they said he walked out. And of course, he wasn't under arrest or anything. So they had to allow him to go. They had Anna come in for questioning. And that, when Anna left from there, she had told me, she's like, I'm just getting a lawyer. They want to do a lie detector test. And I'm, if they pursue this, I'm just getting a lawyer. And I do know that when they went by the house, that they also talked to the mother, but I don't know. She was not in good health. So I'm not sure, how well of a questioning she got. But I do know that when they went to the house, that there was her first, supposedly her second boyfriend there. And I was told that
all right, wait,
we should
I need to jump in here for a second. How did you know that, who told you that, did Anna just tell you that she was going to get a lawyer, or did somebody else tell you that she was going to get a lawyer?
No, she told me
she
that.
just told you that. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And how do you know that the brother went in and then was left? Was he helpful or not? Was he forthcoming, I guess is the word, or not?
No, he got angry and he left.
How do you know that?
So, because the chief told me that.
All right. So this is information coming from the police. This isn't some like rumor or something. This is coming from the horse's mouth.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you said
I thought that was very telling.
We're not going to get into. Yeah, we're not getting into that. I just
sorry.
wanted to make sure that we know where this information is coming from, and you're just not making it up off the top of your head. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So we need to just know that this is coming from an official source when you start saying things like that. All right.
Okay.
So, and you said something about a boyfriend. The whose boyfriend?
Anna's boyfriend.
But she's married.
She is married. She's still married.
Okay. All right. So,
yes.
All right. So we'll just leave it at that. So,
that actually came from the chief as well.
Okay. So they're doing some questioning. They're talking to Anna. Makes sense to the point where they want to do a polygraph. She wants to get a lawyer. I don't know what to think of that. And her brother goes down. He gets all ticked off. He storms out. So say the police. That's not Sean talking here. That's not something Sean's making up. That's what the police told her. Yes. And he goes off. The mother, not going to be that helpful. But the perception is that when the police did go over to the house later, I guess maybe later in June or in July of that.
That would be July.
That it seemed that Anna already had another guy in her life. Once again, the police perception. That doesn't mean reality, but that was their perception.
Right.
Okay.
Well, There's more to that.
Okay, we'll get into more later, but that was the
Okay.
police perception. That's what they're telling you.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now let's go to talking about the car, and then we can talk about some searches that were done in the area. How was the
Okay.
car found? You stated that it was found 9/10 days later. It's a
Yes.
pretty long time, unfortunately. Where was it found? The significance of that area? By who? Let's just talk about all that now.
So on June the 19th, Anna messaged me and she said, my boss's fiance just found the vehicle. And I'm like, oh, okay. Is Jamie there with it? And she said, I don't know yet. Whenever I get off work, I'm going to go up there and take a look. And so her boss and her significant other took her up there after she got off work. And Anna sent me pictures once she got there. And there was a picture of the back window, and it showed that it's had writing on the back. And it said, help me, he is near. And then she sent me a picture of the inside through the window, and you could see that the seat was pulled all the way forward, and the seat was ripped kind of by where the gear shift is. And she said it was not like that before. One of the windows was cracked just a little bit. The doors were locked. There was no sign of Jamie. But the significance of where it was parked is that it was parked right across the street from where our mother lived back in the 90s. And she lived there for several years. And the Bluff Hole is a place where she and the boys both all went to, it was like their local rural swimming hole. And so Jamie was very familiar with the Bluff Hole. And Anna had said that he had taken her there one time before. So after that, the next day is when she made the police report. And then the day after that is when they began the searches. So they searched that general area around the car. They had cadaver dogs that they let loose first. And then they searched, I believe they said a 3-mile radius. And they had some dive teams that searched the water, because at that time, there was some flooding in the area. So the Bluff Hole is this big creek-like area that kind of makes a little pool. And apparently it gets really deep when the water is high. But there's a creek, it's called Dry Creek, that when it floods, that dry creek is a running creek. And at that time, the water was high and it was running. Okay. So, that's kind of been one of our concerns is, did something happen that maybe he lost his footing and he fell?
We're not going to get into any theorizing. We're just going to say that there was a creek nearby that your brother knew was there. And so if you can explain once again the searches, and did you go there to take part, or were you have your own life to live? What were you doing?
Well, at that time, I did not take part in the initial searches, because they did a couple of searches in that general area. Me and my husband and his family, we went there to Arkansas and participated in a search after the last phone location was found in a specific area. And so we went there and we participated in that search. But they've had other searches, and they don't always tell us when they're doing searches. Sure. In fact, the chief will call me after a search and say, I know I told you I would call you to let you participate in another search, but we've already done it. So sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay because they're hard.
Yeah, being that your mother lived in that area, my guess is then you are very familiar with this area too.
I'm familiar with part of the area. I didn't live there or graduate from there.
Oh, okay.
I lived in a town that's further, like 20 minutes or so. And
okay.
so I'm not really familiar with Booneville. I mean, I've become more familiar as time is going by. Even when mom lived there, I mean, we didn't, go sightseeing or anything like that. So I wasn't that familiar with it.
Okay. Being that you have been there, I'm going to be doing a map analysis video for this disappearance that'll be on YouTube for everybody. But in general, being that you've been there, how would you explain the terrain around that area? Very woodsy, very open, somewhere in between, easy to search. What is your perception?
It is very woodsy, very dense undergrowth, lots of rocks. Like the creek area is very so rocky you can barely walk it. I mean,
Wow.
if you get on the banks, you can do it better.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess because all the soil is washed from that creek area, if you try to walk down the creek bed, you're going to twist an ankle for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
So
you would say not the easiest area to search. Just saying that if we are to believe that he was the one, that Jamie was the one who put the car there, not an easy area to search.
Right. Definitely not. Not at all.
Okay. And going back to how this car was found, so it was the boss's fiance, Anna's boss's fiance, so the boss at the Dollar General store?
This was actually the boss at the Jan Mart where she worked in Booneville.
Okay. So the boss's fiance, did the boss's fiance at that time know that Jamie was missing?
Yes, they did. They knew he was missing.
All right. So this person might be on a little heightened alert, going through that area on the 19th, comes across the vehicle. I realize you were not following this person around. Was this person going through this area every day? Would this have been an area that person crossed where the car was found every day, or was this just a unique circumstance? Do you know?
He had a daughter who had passed away and was buried close to that area. So he would go through that area. And he and Jamie were friends back from whenever they were youngsters. So he knew Jamie.
Yeah.
And of course, was concerned for him.
Right.
I haven't talked to him.
Yeah. I guess what I'm saying is that being that he came across the car by accident, I'm happy he did. Are we then to believe that the car wasn't there on the 18th or the 17th or the 16th? Or is it possible that it was and he just hadn't been through that area in those preceding days?
It was. And in fact, I spoke to a lady who told me on June the 9th, she and her kids went to the bluff hole and Jamie's car was there because they had to walk around it to get to the swim hole.
Okay. All right. So then what we're saying is this guy just happened to be in the area. There is a cemetery there. That's where his daughter was buried. And he just happened upon it. And he was the one who called it in. And we can understand why the other people didn't call it in because it just popped out of nowhere. They could have, Jamie could have been out in the woods somewhere for all they knew, doing hiking or something.
There's hikers and people who swim down there. So it's frequented by several people a day.
Okay. Was the car what you would say hidden, or was it in plain view? Would you really, really have to be looking for it to see it? How would you explain it?
Yeah, you would definitely have to turn your head and look because from the road, you're not going to see it very easily. Unless maybe if the sun was hitting just right, but it's very woodsy through there and, like I said, dense. And so unless you happen to be looking down that little driveway going to the bluff hole, you're not going to notice it.
All right. So it was on a road. It was just a dirt road that the spot it was at was just not easily seen from the main road.
It's more like a driveway. I mean, just you could tell that cars go in and out there because it's still like there's grass in the middle, and it's just, from the sides are kind of worn away from where people have driven in and out, so there's not as much grass there.
All right. So then is it your understanding, I know I'm being very technical because we have to be very important about this car situation, is that then your opinion that probably many people went by his car over those days? Remember, it's summer, it's Arkansas, kind of warm, going down the hole. Is it then your impression probably that many people went by his car during those days and just never called it in, never thought anything unusual about it?
Yeah. I had actually heard from several people since, all of this has gone on, that they had seen his car there. They just didn't think anything about it. And, I guess maybe they thought somebody's car broke down and they'd be back later to get it.
Sure.
Makes something like sense. That. But makes people in the area have let me know, we saw a car there. We just, it was there for over a week, and we just didn't know, that there was anything to be concerned about.
All right. That happens. All right. So I need to ask you this. You said, was the car locked?
Yes, it was locked.
All right. Did you ever find the keys? No keys.
No keys.
No keys. How did you have to get a spare set? Did somebody Slim Jim it? How did you get into the car? Does that
there was not a spare set, but when the police came and got it, they brought the tow truck in that first day of the search. The guy who was driving the tow truck Slim Jimmed it to open it for Anna so that she could get in there and do whatever she needed to do.
Okay. Now, my understanding is that you already said there was something ripped about a seat or something that Anna said had not been like that before. And by the way, what kind of car is this?
It's a 2010 Chevy Equinox.
Okay. Kind of an SUV / I don't know, passenger van, minivan type of thing, right? Something like
that. Yeah, it looks like an SUV. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, I've read, and we've talked about it, that though there was something else that seemed to be a bigger deal that was wrong with the car, that it seemed that somebody had ripped out some of the electronics. I'm not expecting you to be a car technician or anything, but in layman's terms, how would you explain it?
Well, my brother is a mechanic, so my other brother. And so I had him take a look at the pictures, and the cables are off the battery, and he said it's a component, it's a black box component where it holds all the electronics for the car, including the GPS system, which the car did not have OnStar, but it was equipped for supposedly if they wanted to have it. But so that was removed and just kind of set on the top there. And there was a couple of other loose pieces, nothing of significance, and nothing really missing as far as I could tell.
Okay. So in being and talking to your brother, who is the expert on this topic, is it then his impression that this had to have been done after the car was parked there? You could not drive the car with these things disconnected.
You definitely could not drive it. It would not start without all these components.
Okay. I also understand, and this is going to be a familiar story to all the Unfound listeners, that there was no processing of the vehicle. There's no fingerprints done, no checking for blood or anything like that.
Right. And, a lot of people point fingers at that for the police department, and it is a big deal, but they were being told that they believed by his wife that he was just out partying. So, but, when they found his car abandoned, they thought, well, maybe he had a diabetic episode or heart attack or whatever. So that's why they decided to go ahead and start searching for him at that point. But they weren't, at that time, expecting that there was any foul play.
Okay.
So they
for the record, we don't know if there was foul play or not. All I'm saying is, even though the card sat there for 10 days, these things were ripped out, and we're going to get to the message that was written on the car. They didn't do any processing of it.
Right.
All right. So even if somebody else parked to some stranger, let's just say that he got carjacked, there was no processing done for any fingerprints or anything.
Nope, nothing.
Okay. Anything
they
else?
They did visually look to see if they saw any evidence of blood, like fresh blood, but other than that, no.
Okay. What about those clothes that the brother and the mother said he had thrown in there? Were they there?
And it's strange because when Anna went there and took the pictures, she said all the clothes were in there. But when the police came and they took their pictures and they got the car back to her, she said most of the clothes were gone and all of the shoes were gone. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's strange.
All right. Not sure what to make of that. Anything else unusual about the car? So we got the message that we're going to talk about. We got things ripped out. We have clothes that maybe are not there, were there. We have a rip in the seat. And so certainly some things that certainly seem out of place. The car's locked, but there's no keys. Of course, there was a search of the area, nothing of his. Well, some things I guess were found eventually in this search. Am I right about that?
Yes, about 100 feet or so down the creek bed, they did find some of the things that had been in Jamie's wallet before, like his health card and some cards that he picked up at different businesses. Mm-hmm. And right by where the car was parked, there was things like sugar packets and a couple of straws and things, just kind of like you would see out of a console. So, there were several things found.
All right, but those things couldn't be connected to his car, but certainly things like the cards and everything could be connected to him.
Yes. I mean, the health card definitely had his name on it.
Sure.
His wallet wasn't there, but that health card was.
Okay. So when the searches were done, they, of course, did not find him, but they did find things that certainly can be connected to him.
Yes.
Right. And would you say, in your opinion, that they were these things spread out all like in every direction of the vehicle or only in one direction?
In one direction.
And this had to do with this creek that we've already talked about?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I'm guessing they kind of tried to look in that direction. Of course, we know that nothing was found. What did happen to the car?
They towed it back to Anna's house. And I guess within a month or so, it got repossessed and went back to Florida where the lien holder was. And so it was out of our, possession at that time. And I had actually, when the car was still there, I had asked the chief if he could please just go by and fingerprint it. And he told me there really wasn't any sense in it because it had been 2 weeks. Yeah. And in 2 weeks' time, there, could have been any number of people who had been in and out of that car. So fingerprinting it would not be admissible in court. So not worth their time.
Nope. They're not going to do it when the car is found. It's not worth doing. Okay. Anybody have any idea on the last time that, if we are to believe that he put the car there, the last time he was even in that area? And how far is this from where he lived?
I believe it's about 12 miles from where they live, 10, 12.
So not close. And any idea the last time that he had been there?
The last time he had been to the Bluff Hole?
Yeah, to anywhere in that area at all.
Anna said he had taken her there one time, and I never did ask her when that was, so I'm not really sure. He doesn't know a lot of people in that area.
Okay. All right. So we just don't know. All right, we'll come back to that later. These words, this message that was on this car, I understand this, of course, at the time looked like something that was very, very important, but then I've learned that it was a hoax. Why don't you explain that?
Yeah, when I first saw it, that is actually what caused me to go, something is not right here.
Mm-hmm.
So the young men that actually did us a favor. So when the first news aired, they talked about the wording on the back window, and that caused it was 4 people, and 2 guys and 2 girls, and they actually went to the police and let them know that they were the ones who had done that. They felt bad because it was looked at being connected to Jamie's case. Mm-hmm. But when the chief reached out to me about after talking to them, he said that they were underage, so no, I couldn't talk to them. That when they got there, they said the car was running and there was somebody in it. Huh. So I don't know if that was a misunderstanding, because later I did get to talk with one of the young men, and he told me when they got there, they actually came in from the other side. They did not even see Jamie's car. And so, but when they were leaving, they came out the other way. And so Jamie's car was there. And he told me, he said, it looked like it had been sitting there a while. It was dusty on the outside and the inside. He said, we did try the doors and they were locked. Mm-hmm. And, I kind of laughed about that. But, and he said they thought it was probably just like a hiker hiking or something. And they decided to write on the back window. He said he wrote one part and his friend wrote the other part. Mm-hmm. And they were just laughing, thinking it was funny. Yeah. And so little did they know that was, part of a missing persons case.
Just bad choice, apologized. Bad time.
Yeah, he felt really bad. And, I asked them lots of questions, and they were more than willing to answer any questions I had, and really, really nice people.
Mm-hmm. Did they denied seeing anybody in the car?
Yeah. When they went by, they said there was nobody in the car. And I asked them, was the car running? And he said, no. He said he or his friend, one, I can't remember, actually touched the hood to see if somebody had driven there recently. And he said it was cold to the touch. So nobody had. Yeah.
Did you tell them?
They were just trying to see if somebody was going to come back soon.
Right.
And, before on it. So
did you tell him that the sheriff told you something, or whoever it was, the police chief, said something different?
Yeah. He knew.
He knew that. So just so the listeners are clear, the people who did this, who wrote these messages, you actually talked to one of them. They apologized. They admitted that they did it. My impression is they are not a suspects in your brother's disappearance at all. But they told you they never saw anybody in the car, but the sheriff or the police chief said they did.
Yes, exactly.
All right. And on top of that, the police chief told you that they were underage, but these people are over 18 years old.
Yes. And, in their defense, they do look young. I think when you get older, everybody looks younger. But, these people do look younger. But, this guy has a young child. So, he is in his early 20s.
Okay. All right. And do we know did they do that on June 9th, June 10th? Was this person able to say?
He may have given me a date, but he did know it was right before he was going to boot camp.
Wow.
And he may have given me a date, but I don't think he was exactly sure what the date was. Okay. I'll have to go back and look and see for sure.
All right. I guess what you're saying is you didn't get to talk to him until well later, maybe July.
Right. Oh goodness, it was months later. It was probably November or December, somewhere.
Wow. Okay, no wonder he can't remember the exact day. All right, so this ended up being a dead end. This message being written on there ended up being totally a dead end, even though it seems there is a discrepancy between what the people who actually did it told you and what police told you.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on. Now, there is a story out there. Of course, Jamie's disappearance is now up on the Charley Project. I have to admit, I was very happy that we could make that happen.
Yes, thank you.
Through
I was
my
excited.
through my assistant Emily, and then my friend Megan over there at the Charley Project, longtime friend of like 6 years now. I was more than happy to talk to her about that. But in that biography on her page, it talks about how some friends said that Jamie was actually at their place allegedly around June 12th. Where does this story come from? It because it doesn't seem to match in the timeline. What we've discussed up to this point. What can you say about that?
Well, she reached out to me to let me know that she was going to the gas station, and the gas station was across from this particular hotel in the Ozark area. And while she was pumping gas, she saw Jamie over at the hotel, and he waved at her and she waved at him, and he walked over and started talking to her. And she said when she was talking to him, she could tell he was upset. And so she invited him over for dinner. She had previously worked with him for quite a while in Ozark, whenever he had lived in Ozark years ago. And so he came over to dinner with her and her husband and their child. And after dinner, they were sitting around talking. And she asked him, "Are you okay? Because you seem sad." And she told me, she said, "This is something you don't ever see with Jamie, is sadness." And he said, "Well, my wife and I, we had an argument, and I came home and saw that she was high. And it upset him because she had insisted that he remain sober for the year before they got married." And he said, "I was upset about that, and then she was going to work the next day. And so
But this person is saying this all took place on June 12th.
Well, that's the thing, is she didn't know exactly what date. I was trying to guesstimate, and I was trying to help her get us an exact date, because I was like, "Can you, maybe find gas receipts or whatever?" And she said, "Well, the thing is, I go to this particular gas station every day after I pick up my child from daycare to get him a snack. So I've got thousands of receipts from this gas station."
Mm-hmm.
And so, I was just trying to help her jog her memory, but she couldn't pinpoint an exact date. So,
right.
After talking with people, we're not sure if it was during this time or before all of this.
Because once again, you certainly understand it. I understand it. I think the listeners understand that if somebody saw him in Ozark around June 12th, this certainly does put a hitch in the timeline. That, of course, he could go missing on the 9th, but it seems like his car was already out there at the watering hole like the 9th or the 10th. Right?
Right.
Yeah. Have you ever mentioned this to Anna? Have you told her, or this friend that said that he was over on the 12th? Did she have any insight into that?
I did not ever mention it to her, because of the simple fact of what was being said about her being high. I just never wanted to confront her about that. Okay. And by the time I had found this out, mine and Anna's relationship was getting a little more shaky. And I did not want to go there. I didn't want to be pointing a finger and be accusatory towards her.
Okay. Regarding this alleged June 12th, we understand that might not be the right date, and very well could be June 8th, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We don't know. But Being that he was over there, could there be any other adults who were also there that might be able to corroborate or undermine this story, or is it just this one person who's telling you this?
As far as I know, her husband was there. I have not talked to him or had her talk to him. She was very nervous about all of the everything going on with Jamie's case. And so she, absolutely did not want her name mentioned for her family's safety.
Yeah.
And I understand that for sure. But she backed off and hasn't spoken to me. I've tried reaching back out to her, and she'll read my messages, but she will not respond. And I don't know if that's out of fear or what.
Don't know. Not going to speculate. All we know is she said something one time and now she's not talking anymore. But we have the most important part. How long after his disappearance did you talk to her about this?
Oh, it was several months.
All right. So
probably,
once again,
September, October. Yeah, several months.
All right. So it could be very easy to understand that it wasn't June 12th. It was actually June 2nd or something.
Yes.
It was before he actually went missing, but because although our minds are great machines and everything, you start getting far away from a certain date, and it starts
especially when you have small children and you don't get much sleep.
Yeah, so not sure what to make of that. I'm leaning toward this is not a thing, but I'm not sure if there's any facts to necessarily say it, but it just my experience. I'm not sure if we're supposed to believe this, especially when you put it with some of the other things we've already talked about. Let's move on to this. Now, you did say that he had a phone, and they did, I guess, ping it, even though he wasn't technically on a network. What came of that?
The phone has never been found. However, when the last phone location was done during an interview that was being done with Anna, they did that through the iCloud phone location, and it led to a certain area that was actually on the river downstream from where they found the car.
Wow.
So, we don't know if they did check, the chief did check the flood maps and said that all of that area was flooded at that time. And so it's possible, maybe the phone lived for a little while. It was in an otter case, and I don't know how good those things are, but if it floated downstream and because it eventually got water in it, or whether he was there and that was the last place he was, but because I know they're not exactly accurate in their exact location, because I've done it on my own phone just to see. Yeah. And it would be 2 or 3 blocks off, from where I was actually sitting with my phone. So I know it's not totally accurate.
Okay. Is it your impression, given the searches, that there were searches done in this area where the phone pinged?
Yes, because we participated in one of those searches. When they did the last phone location, the interviewers and Anna all went out to that area along with law enforcement. And I'm not sure if the search team was involved in that search, but they did just do like an initial search. And it was already towards the end of the day, so it wasn't going to last very long. And then they scheduled for the more intense search for later, and we got to participate in that. But during that initial search, Anna had a panic attack and ended up kind of sinking to the ground and couldn't go any further. And so she had to be consoled by one of the interviewers. And and I understand, if you here she is saying that Jamie's out partying and you're looking for a phone in an area that's very remote.
Yeah.
That is very concerning,
Sure.
whether that was the issue. I don't know.
Okay. How far, in your opinion, was this ping from where the car was found?
It is about 5 miles.
Not close then.
Right.
Not close to walk.
As
Especially,
the crow flies, it's
Yeah.
probably closer. But when you're taking it by car, it's about 5 miles.
okay. So we have to believe if Jamie was walking, it sounds like some pretty tough terrain to walk that far. 5 miles is
Yeah.
long even when you're walking in a city street on a sidewalk. In the woods or even along a country road, it's a little different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so the phone pinged as far as well as we can tell, about 5 miles away. This area is searched. Of course, nothing was found. No phone was found. The only things that were found that could be connected to Jamie were much closer to the car, correct? The card, like you
Right.
said, those other
Yes.
things. Would you say that those cards or that card or whatever else there were, was that in the direction that the ping was where the phone eventually pinged, or was it in the opposite direction? Your impression.
If you follow the dry creek and it dumps,
Mm-hmm.
I believe it dumps into the river.
All right.
Then that would be, correct. However, I'm not sure if Dry Creek dumps into the Petit Jean River or Blue Mountain Lake. I would have to have a local tell me how that works there.
Okay.
Because I don't know.
All right. So we're not sure, right? Just talking here. I'm sure I'll be able to look at it and figure it out later. But it very well could be that those items, the card and these other things, were in the direction of where the phone pinged, but it could have been in a different direction.
Right.
Okay. Let's move on to this. My understanding is that there is a gun missing within this disappearance. Is that true? At least that's what Anna said. Did they have a gun? Did you know Jamie had a gun? What?
I never saw a gun, never heard of a gun until Anna brought it up and asked me. Her words were, "I hope Nikki still has the gun." And I was, "What gun?" And she said, "I had gotten Jamie a gun as a gift, and he was very excited about it. And he can't buy a gun himself."
Right.
And so once she bought it for him, he said that he was taking it to Nikki for safekeeping.
Your sister Nikki, to be clear. Okay.
Yes. And I immediately contacted Nikki and said, "Did Jamie ever leave a gun with you?" And she said, "No, never." And I said, "Has Jamie ever talked about a gun?" "No, never." And so I let Anna know, and she's like, "Oh, okay." So then the next time that she went to the police station was actually a friend of ours had taken, her name's Karen, had taken Anna. They went and searched the general area where the car was found. And then they drove by the police station. And they both went in, and they were just talking with one of the officers there. And in this conversation, Anna mentioned to the officer, the only thing that she knew of that was missing was the gun. And so, of course, they're, besides some of the clothes, but and then Karen and this officer actually went and they spoke privately, because Karen's son is a police officer for a different city. And so when they went and spoke privately, it caused Anna to get very upset, and to the point where she and Karen got into a shouting match over Messenger, the all caps thing. And Anna said some pretty ugly things to her. And
what was the topic?
The topic was pretty much that how dare she go and talk with the officer without her, and just basically stuff like that, and stuff that Karen had confronted her about, just asking her direct questions, and Anna getting upset at these questions that was being asked of her. And I can't really remember all the questions. That was way back there.
Mm-hmm.
So just right after he went missing.
Yeah, a year and a half ago. Now, of course, you should know. Maybe you don't know this, Sean, but the average age of a disappearance we cover on Unfound is about 20 years old. So when you say way back a year and a half, that's like really, really, in our world, that's really, really recent. So that's interesting.
I can't even imagine what those people go through, because I know what we're going through in 20 years of this.
I know.
How do you live through that? Because it's draining on your health.
Yes. So what we're saying is this gun, it's I guess it existed. It's not been found. And it doesn't sound like he gave it to anybody. Doesn't sound like anybody else has seen it. Was he known to carry? Surely, he's not even supposed to have it, given that he's been a felon.
No.
But did he actually carry it in his car? Do we know anything about his usual? I carry a gun here in Florida, so I know all about that. But did he usually have it with him anyway, or do we even know anything about that?
I know nothing about that, because I didn't even know he had a gun.
All right.
And she had said she hadn't seen it in a couple of months herself. So I don't know.
Okay. So it's kind of ominous. We don't know what happened, but when you hear a person who's gone missing, maybe in general circumstances like this, and then you hear that a gun is also missing, obviously a lot of people
right. And we did check all the local pawn shops in the area, and just just local for sale sites and stuff like that, just to see if something had come up, but we didn't see anything at all.
Yeah, and the tough part is that given that he was into drugs, that he could have traded it for drugs, and those are not the type of people who are going to do the paperwork or anything else. And in fact, in that business, that's exactly what you want. You want more guns. So we must consider that. Okay.
Right.
We've talked about her quite a bit. I'm not sure what to make of it. Her, Anna. But we're going to just talk to her about it a little bit. We're not here to assassinate her character or anything like that. We don't know what happened. But we just have to state we have facts. And we'll go back to what the police said is when they showed up like a month later in July, their impression was that Anna had a new guy in her life. All I want to know is, have you ever specifically talked to her about that? Have any of your siblings ever asked Anna about this guy in her life, how this happened? For example, well, why are you doing this? Couldn't our brother come back tomorrow? Have any of you ever had any conversation with Anna about that particular topic? That's all I'm interested in.
We are not confrontational people, so no, we did not talk to her at all. But I will say that the chief did get Anna's phone and Jamie's old phone that was still connected to the iMessages and Facebook, and just took them in his possession for a couple of days and went through them. And he did tell me he could tell where the relationship started through texting in July.
All right. So it didn't start until July as far as he could tell.
Right.
All right. And we have to remember that as far as we can tell, that Jamie went missing on June 9th.
Yes.
So even maybe a month before that. Do you have any idea how she even knows this guy or knew this guy? Maybe they're not even a couple anymore. I don't even know. But do you know how they're
not
acquainted?
a couple? They're not a couple anymore, but they both live in the same town, and it is a small town, and so. Oh well, actually, she did say that she and her brother were doing a job because they do some handyman work, construction and stuff, and that he was helping them on a job.
All right, so that's how they met.
Yeah.
And this has happened after Jamie went missing. That is her story.
Yes.
Okay, sounds conceivable. Okay, let's move on to this. Now, what about, we have to remember, there are all these people living under the roof where Anna and Jamie were living. Her brother, his kids, their mother, lots of people under this one roof. But her brother has a history. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's a matter of public record, or I wouldn't even mention it. I mean, anybody could go look it up.
Okay.
But there is a kidnapping charge where he went to prison. And, I have found out details about that, but I won't go into it. Just
okay. All right. All we know is it's public record that he has that particular felony. Does he have any other felonies?
That's the only felony that I know of. He is currently another public record about to go to court for choking his wife and attempting to run her and her friend over with the vehicle.
Wow.
So, there's those instances that are,
That's going through the Arkansas courts right now?
Yes.
And you've seen the paperwork? You've been following this, I guess?
Very closely, yes.
Okay. All right. So
actually, today is the 4th. He was supposed to have pre-trial today.
Okay. So we have this guy who's there. It's Anna's brother. He's under the same roof. He was seemingly, allegedly, a witness, a spectator to this argument between Anna and Jamie on June 9th, correct?
Yes.
All right.
He was there, according to Anna.
All right. And had Jamie ever spoken to you or anybody you trust about having to live with this guy? Did Jamie ever have any problems with Anna's brother? Once again, anything, I don't want anything through the grapevine, but anything he ever brought up to you or anybody else you trust?
He never did. He never brought up
Never.
The brother or the mother, for that matter.
Okay. Let's move on to this. Was where they were living, was it ever searched? Did they ever go into the property? Did the police ever ask permission to go inside? Just kind of take a look at things around, look around after, for example, after the car was discovered, were they ever allowed to go on there and, on the property and just kind of make sure that maybe something didn't happen there?
They did go in to give her paperwork. They never did an actual search of the premise. After the search that we did where the last phone location supposedly was, they took their cadaver dogs out there, and not in the yard, but around the outside of the yard to see if they would hit on anything. And Anna actually did message me about that and told me that had happened. And I knew it was going to happen. But they did not go on the premise at all, except for to give her paperwork.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Did the police ever specifically ask them to go onto the property and they said no?
As far as I know, they never asked them.
Okay. All right. So we can't blame them for if the place didn't get searched. It's certainly not because Anna or anybody else kept them from doing it.
Right.
Okay. All right. So not sure what to make of that. The tough part about any disappearance like this is when we start talking about drugs and things, you're going to run into people with felonies. We have to talk about it. But we also have to realize that a lot of these people, although they have felonies, that doesn't mean they would ever, let's just put it out there, that doesn't mean they would ever kill anybody. But when you have things, you have family interactions and things get out of control, we know that sometimes there are unintended consequences. Let's move on to this. Being that we can't forget way back early in this conversation that you said that there was this car that Jamie was given, and then he claimed that somebody stole it. And then what really happened was that he abandoned it because he was hallucinating because he was on meth. I'm just going to ask you this. Looking at the car and how these things were all ripped up, did it occur to you when you saw all of this could it be that he was having one of these hallucinations again? Did that occur to you? Did you think about that? Did you talk to your siblings about that? Can you say what that conversation was?
Honestly, that was my first thought, was that had happened. And, in Messenger, Anna and I had actually talked about that. And I told her that Jamie had done that before. And I mentioned our mother's car. And she said, oh, I know. He told me about that. All right. So I know that she knows as well that had happened. So it is something that we talked about as siblings. But honestly, knowing what we know, that car would have been a whole lot more torn up if Jamie had done that.
Okay.
I mean,
let me ask you this then. The other car, what kind of car do you even remember? If you don't, that's fine. The other kind of car, what was the other car that he had abandoned? What kind of car was that?
It was an SUV as well.
It was.
Okay. But I can't remember make or model.
Okay. Was it were things ripped out of it, like ripped out of this one, or is it kind of just he just ran away from it?
That one he just ran away from. However, there was another vehicle, and I had a lady reach out to me after he disappeared, after she saw pictures of the car. And she said, I just want to tell you that your brother at one time was buying a car from me, and he went on a bender and did something like that to that car. But it was literally ripped to shreds inside and out. Like there was, everything was torn up on the inside, and everything that was able to be taken out easily was taken out and just tossed in the field. This was very, it definitely wasn't
that bad,
as bad as that kind of situation. And I've talked to my brother Daniel about when Jamie would be on the meth and would be hallucinating. And he said that some people would say that Jamie was weird because he would like get under a table and be looking at papers and showing people, he would stick his head out from under the table and say, see this list of people here? These are all the people that are after me. Wow. And, just,
so paranoia stuff. Paranoia.
Yeah. And I've never done drugs, so I've never experienced anything like that. I don't know anything about it. So I have to get my story secondhand.
Yeah, okay. Me too. I don't even, as listeners know, I don't even drink, and I'm not 420 friendly, any of that stuff. Okay, so we have to kind of put that all within the context of, here we are with minds that are clear, and we're trying to think of things in a logical way, but here we have Jamie, who seems like a nice guy, but he had an addiction, and so it seems like we have things that are on the record that have nothing to do with his disappearance, where he was not acting in a logical way. He was seeing things in a totally different way the rest of us see them. Okay. And what was his addiction occurring in June of 2021?
As of that time, he was clean as far as I know. I do know that the friend in Ozark said she could tell he was clean because she knew him from before. And his eyes were clear. Except for the fact that he was sad, she said that he looked very healthy and didn't have the look of anybody who had been using or was currently using. Right. So, and my brother Daniel knows Jamie very well in his addiction. And so I was showing him all the pictures that Anna had sent me of Jamie. And he said, Sean, I could tell you 100% for certain that in none of those pictures was he using. And he does this demonstration with his face, and he like sucks his lower lip in and sucks his cheeks in. And he said, when Jamie's using, it could be just one time, but his cheeks automatically get sunken in. He said, I don't know what it is about that makes it that way, but Jamie, you can tell when he's using. And he said, in not one of those pictures was he using. There was the last picture, and Anna had even written on the picture, last picture taken of my boys, and it was Jamie and his dog. And they had a fruit roll up, and the dog had one end and Jamie had the other end, and they're, I guess, eating their way to the middle, which is totally disgusting. But anyway, Daniel looked at that picture and he said he wasn't using. Now, was he using that day after the argument? I do not know because I wasn't there. So I can't say one way or the other. But I do know up to the point of that picture, it was obvious, at least to Daniel and to the other friends that knew him and had seen him around town, that he was clean.
Okay. We've talked about this. You've brought it up just recently when I was telling you how old the average age of a disappearance is that we cover on Unfound. You've talked about how the last year and a half has been draining. Being that you've already talked about it for yourself, can you explain, maybe can you talk for your other siblings and how they've handled the last year and a half?
It has been the most difficult thing I think we've ever, as a family, gone through. We each and every one of us, we were close to Jamie in our own special ways and in the same way, if that makes sense. Like, we all felt like we were the closest to him. If you ask my sister Nikki, she'll tell you, oh, I was closer to Jamie than any of them. If you talk to me, I was closer to Jamie and same with Daniel. So it's he was just loved. So at first it was panic, like constant total panic for months, trying to find him, while we felt like there may be something left to find. And then after that, it was really sinking in that he is really gone. And around the time that his daughter's birthday came and went, I think we were all basket cases for the day before, the day of, and a few days after, just because that wasn't something that he would do, is to not contact his daughter and, wish her happy birthday or take her a present or take her out to eat. So that was very depressing. Having to try to live a normal life when all you want to do is drop everything and go search for him. But you can't, because you've got a family and you've got to make ends meet. Right. And so you're stuck. And can only take vacation time to go. Yeah. So, but I do what I can from here. I'm a state away. And, so I do these interviews in the hopes that somebody out there that knows something will reach out to us and, just give us some closure. And I know closure isn't going to be the end of our grief. We're going to have to carry that with us, but it will just give us some answers and help us to not have to spend every day talking to people and, internet sleuthing and all of this. So, and I can say, I cannot tell you how many times I have said, I think I need to go see a therapist. Because I get to the point where I'm like, I cannot take another day of this. But the next day I wake up and I have to take it. I have to go, I have to live, and I have to keep looking for him. And I'm not going to stop until I find him, because he meant the world to all of us. And, if you're the peacemaker in a family and you're, Joe on the go with the jokes and the laughing, and, you get us in a room and we're all laughing until our bellies hurt, and Jamie is, very witty and will have you rolling in the floor. So our meetings now are a lot more somber. We don't laugh as much. It's a heavy, heavy weight to bear. And I can speak for my siblings. My little brother, Daniel, told me just this morning that he is going to seek mental help because he is not doing well with it. He is on around the time of Jamie's birthday, back October 25th, he was having a particularly hard day. And he said, I snapped at a guy and we nearly, got in a fist fight. And he's like, I can't be doing that. I have to find a way to cope with this.
Yes.
And, Daniel's had his own addiction problems and he's not wanting to go back into the drugs because he's seeing what the drug scene has caused us. He was in prison during the time that Jamie disappeared. And he wasn't really having to deal with it. But now that he's out, all these people who know Daniel and know Jamie, they're trying to go to Daniel and they want to talk about it. And he's like, I don't want to deal with this. So, and my sister Nikki, she's going through a whole lot right now anyway, but you put Jamie's disappearance in there and, she lives there. And so Jamie would go by her house and call her on the phone and pick up the phone and say, hey, Nikki, I need a ride if he didn't have a vehicle. So it's super, super hard on her. And I think that's why I'm able to pick up the torch and carry it, is because I am a state away. And so while Jamie and I were still close and we still talked all the time, I wasn't seeing him, once a week or whatever. And so I think that's the only reason I'm able to do it. They're more like, they can't. It's too heavy. It's too hard. And we hope one day we'll find him. I don't want this to go for 20 years. Yeah. I can't imagine being 64 years old and still having to do live interviews.
Yeah. Do you have a website, Facebook page, anything like that set up for Jamie's disappearance? If so, why don't you tell the listeners and viewers about it right now?
Yes, it is James, and in parentheses, Jamie, or quotations, Jamie Valdez missing. Or they could go to my Facebook page, Sean Claiborne. And there's a link on my page to get to Jamie's page.
And do you or somebody in your family, does someone in your family actually run that page?
I do the most part of the work. I try to make a post a lot, and then I answer questions as they come up. And we did have an advocate who actually made the page for us.
Okay.
But she's moved and life has kind of gotten in the way, so she's not as available. So I've kind of taken it over, and I try to encourage people, even though the details you may know may be terrible, we still want to hear them because we just need this to be over with already. And we've heard so many rumors that there's nothing that anybody could tell us at this point that could be any worse than what we've already heard. So just tell us what you know.
All right. So what I'm saying is, somebody contacts the Facebook page, they will get a response from you. It'll actually be somebody in Jamie's family.
Probably 9.9 times out of 10, I will be the one responding.
Okay. Sean, any final words before we complete this interview?
Well, I appreciate you doing this for us. Definitely. That's a godsend for us.
It's very kind.
And I just want to say, if anybody knows anything, and it could be something small, just, and it doesn't matter how many times we've heard it. You may say it in a way that maybe something and somebody has said it in a different way. So every tip has significance, and we want to hear everything. So I just want to encourage everybody to, if they know something, reach out to us and to pray for us, because this is super hard.
Okay. Sean, thank you for being on this episode of Unfound.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. And that was my November 4th, 2022 interview with Sean Claiborne. sister of Jamie Valdez. I thank her for appearing on both audio and video for this episode. 2 important items. Number 1, I made a video showing where Jamie's car was found and the surrounding area. You can find that video on the Unfound Podcast Channel on YouTube. And number 2, Sean sent me a bunch of pictures and maps and video that I posted on the Jamie Valdez page on our website, theunfoundpodcast.com. You can, for example, see the electronics that had been damaged due to someone, possibly Jamie, ripping them out. My insight into Jamie's disappearance is that if his car had been found in a random place far away from where anybody could have expected to find it, for example, like where Milda McQuillan's car was found, then I think we would believe the most likely scenario is that given the argument with his wife, with his ongoing diabetic issues, with possibly falling back into his meth habit, and put that together with a prior story regarding the abandoning of a car, that all of it added up to Jamie not wanting to be alive anymore, or even that he might not have known where he was going, just driving around until he stopped somewhere. The issues that get in the way of that thinking are 2 prominent ones. Number 1, the car wasn't hidden. Whether you believe that there is a conspiratorial angle to this case or not, the car ended up in a spot where several people saw it over that week. So if Jamie really was looking to commit suicide, why leave the car in such a high-profile place? And if somebody killed Jamie, why leave the car where people could see it? And number 2, that the car was where it was shows that if Jamie put it there, then he certainly had all of his senses. Really, what are the odds that Jamie didn't comprehend where he was going, but just happened to leave the car near where he grew up? Yeah, the odds aren't very high. What complicates all of this is that even if we are to believe the very straightforward theory that Jamie put the car there and walked off, we get into a situation like we had with David Hardy Jr. and Jason Landry, where physical issues would have limited how far they could go. Same way with Jamie. Overweight and diabetic. How far could he have gone in the woods? You wouldn't think very far. Yet here we are talking about him as a missing person. Or the searches simply missed him, which is more possible than searchers and dog teams and police will ever admit. I think what I'm saying is we're all still working toward a complete understanding of this type of disappearance, especially if foul play must be considered. We still haven't crossed that fine line. I'll leave the theorizing up to you.
And that's the program. Right now, while you are in your podcast platform, Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, wherever, give Unfound a 5-star review, a thumbs up, whatever that platform allows. I thank you for listening. I'm Ed Densel, and you've just finished this episode of Unfound.